Hey, how you doing, everyone? This is Lee Gerstmann, and I have a record review for you. I have to give a thumbs up and hey, buddy, how are you? To Bill Wang, who suggested that I review the solo album of Paul Stanley from Kiss, the 1978 album. Now, I will preface my review by saying I had this album when it first came out, and I'll give you a little bit of a backstory enough about what was happening. I was going to the record store with my friend and bandmate Pascal Garneau, and we were going into Caledonia Records, which was maybe about mm, either a 5 or 10 minute walk, depending upon how fast you walked from my place. And it was run and owned by the parents of Van Morrison, um, George and Gloria, no, George and Violet Morrison. They were the owners of it, and they were really cool people. George was kind of like distant unless you really got to know him, and then I had some music conversations with him, and I really got a kick out of him. And Violet was a little bit more like hostess like very friendly, but unless you really asked her her opinions a lot, she sort of was a little bit more shy, but she was also very cool. And she was generally more just the more personable one. But they both were really decent, good people. And I really respected them, and that was the store that I went to get stuff. And so when my friend Pascal and I went to the record store back in around, it must be 1978 because that's when the albums came out. We were like, we had no idea that the Kiss albums, the solo albums, were out. We just walked in, and especially Pascal, he later told me, he said he thought if they had done one at a time or something, that would be at least more like able to take in. But to have all of them there in your face all at once was like, whoa. And I felt the same. I had no idea that they were coming out. The first two that I bought, because I bought all of them within 2 or 3 days, I think it's kind of been a long time, so I'm not sure. But I think the first two that I bought were Aces and Jeans, because those were the two that well, you have to start somewhere. And I thought those were the two that were good to start with. But I had to get Paul's and Peter's. You know, it was like I had to get all four. There was no way I couldn't. And then so, anyway, when I heard them back then, I had certain opinions on what I thought of them, but I'm going to give you my opinion on Paul's album because I just heard it this morning and I decided that I would give a review based on how I think of it now. And I really have to say it's probably close to being perfect. I mean, there are some things about it that if I were the producer, I might have changed a little bit. But generally speaking, I would say, first off, if people think that this album by Paul was directly like his version of a Kiss album, I would say they were maybe not so accurate. I would say that maybe it rocks in a way that Kiss rocked, but in a much more thought out and personal way than Kiss would ever do. And I'll talk about it song by song. Anyway, the first song, Tonight You Belong to Me, that is like a really kind of like, well, the chord changes are kind of like minor chords. So it has kind of a moody edge to it. But the essence of the band is very much a rocking band. And it shows that Paul is able to combine moodiness with heavy rock in a way that really works well. And Bob Kulick, as a guitar player, is no slouch. He's really good, and he fits the sound. And then so the next song, Move On, that that has a really cool, intense kind of driving force to it that makes me think this is probably, even though Michael Jaff co-wrote it, it's probably one of Paul's best songs in my hearing it on here. It has this really good driving force to it, and I really, really dig it. And then the song Ain't Quite Right, that was kind of like a sophisticated English type of song. Like it was maybe a group that was less totally heavy, but still rocking. Like, now that I think about it, the group Ace with Paul Carrick, they probably could have done something like this. It has a good sound to it. And then Tonight You Belong to Me, that's kind of like if David Cassidy from the Partridge Family was doing a heavy rock album, but in a cool way. Like I could see him with his shirt off and a bunch of um, people dressed up as pieces of cheese dancing in the background. That would be kind of fun. It's a really cool, um, like pop heavy song. And then the song Take Me Away Together as One. That was also really cool. That had that had elements of maybe the group Snip in the Tears, the Australian group. If I no, they might have been Scottish. Don't quote me on that. But they had the song Driver's Seat. I could imagine them doing this. It's also a sophisticated rocker, and I really, really dig it. Especially the beginning is really hot, but the whole song is. And then the song "It's All Right," that that was kind of like the Sweet. If you ever heard their old stuff like Little Willie and stuff written by Chin and Chapman, this kind of sounded like Paul's nod or wink to people and groups like that. It was really, really kind of fun. And then Hold Me, Touch Me, Think of Me When We Were Apart. I had not really cared for it back then, but in context with the album now, I heard it and I thought, oh my word, this is one of those thoughtful ballads like the Association did when they did the song Cherish. I love that song Cherish. Cherish is the word I use to describe how many times I want to hold you. You don't know how many times I really want to touch you. You don't know how many times I really want to put you in my arms. And cherish is the word I use. Da-da. I mean, a lot of people get sick of that song. I never ever did. But I see now the connection that Paul might have wanted to do a song that was maybe in the style of a ballad of the old 60s pop days. So before I might have thought that it was kind of a misplaced song, but now I see its role in it. And then the song Love in Chains, that to me sounded kind of like Journey, as if, well, the song Separate Ways by Journey came out a lot later than Paul's album, but if you hear the melodic sense to it, you can kind of get the idea that Paul was maybe trying to do like AM heavy rock radio, like not real heavy, but heavy like the Raspberries heavy, as opposed to Judas Priest heavy. But it was still a very cool song. And then the last song, Goodbye, I would have to say that if you just listen to it strictly on its musical, like the way that the people played on it, they have this groove, like they're all in the pocket, probably better than any other song here, especially the bassist and everyone. And the song itself sounds very English. Like I can't think of any particular group that it sounded like, but it sounded very much like an English style song. Well, anyway, I have to say that I really dig this album, and of all the solo albums, I'll have to hear the other ones again in order to really give a thoughtful opinion on which one I think's the real best. But actually, right now, my thumbs up is to the Paul Stanley solo album, and my thumbs up also go to, well, the other thumb too, I guess. Okay, goes go to Bill Wang for his suggestion of my reviewing this album. Take care, buddy. I hope you enjoy the review.